for a deep state investigation. The bombshell revelations in Andrew McCabe's shocking interview. Protesting President Trump's national emergency, tens of thousands of demonstrators flooding streets across the country today as Democrats buckle down for battle, the brand new legal battle over the border. And no longer a victim, a bombshell confession about the alleged attack on Empire actor Jussie Smollett turns the case upside down. Fox and Friends First starts right now. For protests against protecting the southern border. They're expected across the country today. Liberal activists calling for demonstrations in response to President Trump's national emergency declaration. Griff Jenkins is live for us in Washington with more on what to expect. Good morning, Griff.
Good morning, Heather. It's going to be busy. They're calling it President's Day protests. More than 240 actions across the nation are being organized by a coalition of activist groups led by MoveOn.org. You can see on this map, they're literally coast to coast. Now, their goal to fight the president's national emergency declaration and address what MoveOn's campaign director Emma Einhorn says this false crisis is an illegal, unconstitutional power grab that undermines American democracy to advance his racist agenda. This as House Democrats plan to move forward with a resolution opposing the president's declaration. Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff saying this is unprecedented.
Is this the first time a president has tried to declare an emergency when Congress explicitly rejected funding for the particular project that the president is advocating?
And that's not the only challenge the White House is facing. Already lawsuits are underway ranging from the ACLU to at least 5 states, starting with California. But White House senior advisor Stephen Miller says the president is fully prepared to defend his declaration and issue the first veto of his term if Congress votes to disapprove.
He's going to protect his national emergency declaration, guaranteed. This is a threat in our country, not overseas, not in Belarus, not in Zimbabwe. And if the president can't defend this country, then he cannot fulfill his constitutional oath of office.
Now, the president's down in Florida, and this afternoon will make a speech in Miami to address the situation in Venezuela. But rest assured, the streets are going to be full of protesters all across the country today, Heather.
Yeah, it certainly looks that way. Griff Jenkins live for us. Thank you, Griff. Well, President Trump is not the first commander-in-chief to take steps to secure our border. He's just the only one making it happen. And that is why Senator Lindsey Graham says he can't understand the outrage from the left.
The president will have to make a decision where to get the money. And I think that every member of Congress has watched 3 presidents send troops to the border: Bush, Obama, now Trump. Not one of us have complained about deploying forces to the border to secure the border. It's pretty hard for me to understand the legal difference between sending troops and having them build a barrier. What disappoints me is on President Obama's watch, as a Republican, I voted for a $44 billion border security package, $9 billion of which included barriers. 2006, all of us voted for the Secure Fence Act. And we're talking about steel barriers, not a concrete wall. And unfortunately, when it comes to Trump, the Congress is locked down and will not give him what we've given past presidents. So unfortunately, he's got to do it on his own, and I support his decision to go that route.
California, by the way, also plans to sue the administration, accusing the president of just trying to fulfill his campaign promise. So much more on all of this to come. We'll do overnight. 5 people injured after a suspected armed robber opens fire in New Orleans. One witness telling local media, quote, "It was like Wild, Wild West going on." The suspect was shot dead. He was called in to be fired. He was shot and killed by police. Well, Chicago police shifting their investigation into the reported hate crime against Empire actor Jussie Smollett. 2 persons of interest and brothers tell police that Smollett paid them to stage the attack. Marianne Rafferty has the latest on the investigation.
Project Islamic Hope is calling upon the arrest and criminal prosecution of Empire star and actor Jussie Smollett.
Activists protesting for justice against Smollett as an assault case packed with Hollywood-like tales drives the national headlines. The Empire actor, who is black and gay, claiming he was out getting food at a Subway restaurant when two masked men shouting racial and anti-gay slurs physically attacked him. Adding, the perpetrators looped a rope around his neck and poured some kind of chemical on him before running away. After arresting and releasing two Nigerian brothers without charges, Chicago police say the probe has, quote, shifted, sparking allegations Smollett paid the brothers to orchestrate the attack.
There was a lot of information that was shared from the police, from us.
He's been very cooperative.
Detectives requesting some follow-ups, including speaking to the people involved. Police spokesman releasing a statement saying in part, quote, while we are not in a position to confirm, deny, or comment on the validity of what's been unofficially released, there are some developments in this investigation.
We believe Jussie Smollett lied about being the victim of a hate crime.
Smollett's attorney denying the report, saying the actor is devastated, adding in a statement in part, quote, he has now been further victimized by claims attributed to these alleged perpetrators that Jussie played a role in his own attack. In Los Angeles, Marianne Rafferty, Fox News.
Well, shortly after Jussie Smollett's original claims went viral, 2020 Democratic hopeful and New Jersey Senator Cory Booker called it a, quote, modern-day lynching on Twitter. Democratic candidate and California Senator Kamala Harris ended her tweet with calls to confront this hate. And NPR national political correspondent Mara Liasson says that the Democrats' rush to judgment was a mistake.
It amplified the story. Wait before you tweet. You don't have to react to every single thing. Once the actual truth is established, then how do they react? What he did, if that's true, he undermined the claims of every person who is legitimately assaulted. This is an evolving breaking news story. All the time at NPR, we get cautionary emails from editors. Whoa, we are not going with this. You know, this hasn't been established. But it's fine to report on the latest wrinkle. The Chicago police are looking into this. It's not clear what happened, but even the president weighed in on this. Unless you want to say, look, based on what we know now, it's horrible.
Well, Smollett's attorneys deny accusations that he had any involvement in his own attack.
And find out, through questioning, who's telling the truth.
Why our next guest says any serious talks to remove President Trump is nothing short of a coup. And Colin Kaepernick back in the game, his lawyer's bold prediction days after behind new calls for an investigation into what he is calling a bureaucratic coup after fired FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe reveals some new bombshells about an alleged plan to secretly record President Trump in hopes of removing him from office. Joining me now with reaction is former Deputy Assistant Attorney General in the DOJ's Criminal Division, John Malcolm. John, thank you very much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
Good to be with you, Heather.
Let's begin our conversation by listening to a little more of what Andy McCabe had to say on Rosenstein specifically and the 25th Amendment on 60 Minutes. Listen.
A discussion of the 25th Amendment was simply Rod raised the issue and discussed it with me in the context of thinking about how many other cabinet officials might support such an effort. The Deputy Attorney General offered to wear a wire into the White House. He was not joking. He was absolutely serious.
Not joking, absolutely serious, definitely different than what we heard from Rosenstein, and also trying to take a poll as to what other cabinet members may support this move. What do you think about that?
Well, the thought that the Deputy Attorney General would wear a wire into the White House to record a confidential conversation with the president is outrageous, and I have a hard time imagining Rod Rosenstein would ever seriously contemplate doing such a thing. With respect to the 25th Amendment, that's also absurd. So the 25th Amendment is designed to remove a president, usually on a temporary basis, if he or she is physically or mentally incapacitated. Think about what happened after Woodrow Wilson had a major stroke, or think about what might have happened if John F. Kennedy had survived the assassination attempt against him. Clearly, you would not have a president who was capable of functioning. Donald Trump, you may like him or dislike him, is not physically or mentally incapacitated. If the public believes believes that he has done something illegal or abusive. We have another process for that. It's called the impeachment process. But the thought that Rod Rosenstein or Andy McCabe was somehow going to get the vice president and 8 cabinet members to sign a declaration that the president of their own party was physically and mentally incapacitated is a fantasy.
Yeah, it really is unbelievable. We have this statement as well for people. This is Melissa Schwartz, who is a spokeswoman for Andrew McCabe. She said certain statements made by Mr. McCabe in interviews have been taken out of context. They've been misrepresented. At no time did Mr. McCabe participate in any extended discussions about the use of the 25th Amendment, nor is he aware of such discussions. So what do you make of that comment now, based following the interviews that he's given so far?
Well, it certainly appeared to be a little bit contradictory from what I heard last night on 60 Minutes, where he said that this was a serious discussion. I mean, let's be clear. Andy McCabe is somewhat of a dubious source. I mean, he was fired for lying to FBI agents in connection with the leak investigation. He's now hawking a book. There's been a criminal referral to the U.S. Attorney's Office, so he's facing possible criminal prosecution. He's a suspect source. But, you know, if Rod Rosenstein engaged in a joke about wearing a wire or invoking the 25th Amendment, it was surely a joke that was in very bad taste, but it cannot conceivably have been a serious discussion.
But at the same time, you can combine this with James Baker, former FBI lawyer, who said that 2 of President Trump's cabinet officials were ready to support the 25th Amendment, but at the same time, you know, what we were just discussing, Rod Rosenstein said all of this was a big joke. Let's look at the statement, though, first of all, from James Baker, and so you can respond to it. He says, I was being told by some combination of Andy McCabe, Lisa Page, that in a conversation with the Deputy Attorney General, he had at least 2 members of the president's cabinet who were ready to support, I guess you would call it, an action under the 25th Amendment. So would that, to you, seem to be in support of some of what we're hearing?
Well, I've read other reports that the 2 names that were being mentioned were Jeff Sessions and John Kelly. I find that very, very hard to believe. There is no question that there was a lot of tension going on between Jeff Sessions and President Trump. But still, to find that the president's been physically or mentally incapacitated and is incapable of doing the job is quite a reach. And John Kelly, if he had that many concerns about the president, certainly would not have agreed to transfer over from the Department of Homeland Security to become his chief of staff. This is all a fantasy land. Now, there may have been a conversation that took place about this, but it can't have been serious. And if it was certainly in extremely bad taste and would be nothing short of an attempted coup d'etat of a president of the United States.
And that is exactly what I was going to ask you, if you agree, if this actually did transpire and happen. I mean, Americans looking at this and hearing the information coming out, I mean, would this be considered a coup or an attempted coup?
Look, if a bunch of cabinet members got together and said, we don't like this president, but we are now going to file a declaration that he is mentally unhinged and is incapable of doing the job, that would be nothing short of overturning the results of an election. It was never going to happen, which is why I have a hard time believing that the conversation actually took place. Yeah. But if it did take place, and if it was serious, it would be an attempted coup d'etat to overturn the results of an election.
Yeah. And, of course, at the same time, all of this coming as a book is coming out. Andy McCabe's book. Perhaps no coincidence there. Thank you so much, John Malcolm, for joining us. We appreciate it. That was great stuff.
Good to be with you.
Thank you. Well, the time now is back.
And you want to cause suffering to them. What do you think is going to happen?
And Carly Shimkin, the actor's alleged hate crime on people in leadership. Listen.
In terms of connecting the dots, in terms of what happened the other day to Jesse. If you are in a position of power and you hate people, what do you think is going to happen? And people are going to be beaten on the street.
Carly Shimkus with Fox News Headlines 24/7. Sirius XM 115 is here with more on the policy's shocking new suspect.
Yes. So good morning, Heather. And just keep in mind that Ellen Page did make those comments 3 weeks ago, when the allegations first came out. But that video has gone viral with about 17 million views. And according to a new report, the 2 brothers that were questioned by police say that Smollett paid them to stage the attack. Now, this is political, considering the attackers were supposed to be Trump supporters. So we saw a couple weeks ago the left rush to defend Smollett. Now we're seeing the right rush to criticize the situation. Carolyn on Twitter says, easier to blame than seek the truth. Gabby chiming in saying, quick to judge. America deserves an apology. And another Twitter user tweeting at Ellen Page saying, looks like the joke's on you for falling for Jussie's hoax. Who do you blame now? Now, we do not know what happened. Jussie Smollett is sticking with his story. Police want to question him again in light of these new claims. And we saw a tweet from the Empire showrunner just yesterday saying that he still believes Smollett, so he is still seeing support at work.
Apparently there's like receipts, though, and evidence where these two brothers went to a beauty supply store, and that's where they bought these blank red hats, which they were, wearing at the time. So whether or not he was behind that and giving them the money in order to do it, that
is the big question.
But,
bingo.
Wait till all the information comes out.
Absolutely.
That's good advice for all of these celebrities.
And we still don't have the full story just yet.
Yeah. All right. So President Trump calling for retribution from Alec Baldwin from this SNL skit.
Here we go again. That's right. So President Trump taking aim at Alec Baldwin's latest impersonation of him on Saturday Night Live. Take a look.
That's why we need Wall, because Wall works. Wall makes safe. So you can all see why I got to fake this national emergency, right? I have to because I want to.
All right, so in response, the president tweeted nothing funny about tired Saturday Night Live on fake news NBC. Question is, how do the networks get away with these total Republican hit jobs without retribution? Likewise, for many other shows, very unfair and should be looked into. This is the real collusion, says the president. His supporters agree with him. One Twitter user saying, so agenda-driven, it's not even funny anymore. Fran tweets, what they call comedy is definitely a hit job and bashing. And Jessica says they do it to every president. So sort of saying that Saturday Night Live is a comedy show, and they criticize a lot of different politicians.
I don't know. But some of the comedy is kind of crossing the line and becoming mean-spirited. I don't know when that became comedy. But Colin Kaepernick maybe signing with the new NFL team.
Well, big news here. So fresh off his, settling. Yeah, that's right. That's the word. Settling his collusion case with the NFL. Kaepernick's lawyer says that his time with the NFL may not be over and suggested maybe the Panthers would sign him, or even name-dropped Bob Kraft, the owner of the Patriots. Would be pretty surprising because I think they're all squared away in the quarterback position with Tom Brady.
Ours is a little injured right now, though, with the Panthers, though. Cam Newton might be sidelined, so that would be a spot for
That's
him.
right, and they did just sign Eric Reed, who also had the collusion case. That's right. So a lot of people on social media are talking about all things Colin Kaepernick. One Twitter user says, I don't like that he kneels, but it is his right. Goes on to say he is a distraction. And Debbie on Twitter says he should seek another career path. I enjoy football now without his movement trying to divide us. This past football season really didn't have a big conversation surrounding the national anthem kneeling controversy.
Yeah, Eric Reed, who was also one of the ones who supported Colin Kaepernick the first and kneeled with him, as you said, signed with the Panthers, and he's still kneeling. But we'll see. I mean, what we were saying, you get a settlement with the NFL.
Usually.
And then you're still going to get paid by the NFL. I don't know.
A little awkward there. We'll have to wait and see how
Let us know what you think about that.
Yeah,
Thank you so much, Carly.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate
See you later. Well, the time now is about 28 minutes after the top of the hour, and Democrats already vowing to build a legal wall to stop President Trump's emergency declaration. Should Congress be to blame for ignoring the issue for so long? We'll debate it.
Oh, you gotta make this viral? Tape this. Who's taping this? Who's taping this?
And another tarmac tirade, the woman who lost her mind because she had to sit next to a child on a plane. But first, look at your weather across the country today. Protecting the southern border happening across the country today. President Trump's national emergency declaration prompting over 200 President's Day demonstrations. Some 10,000 people expected to march. Organizers are urging Congress to terminate the declaration. Well, President Trump heads to Miami today to give a speech on the crisis in Venezuela and the dangers of socialism. During a trip to neighboring Colombia, Florida Senator Marco Rubio pressured disputed Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro to stop blocking his borders and let U.S. aid into the country. And two brothers telling Chicago police Empire actor Jussie Smollett paid them to stage his now widely disputed hate attack. They were released without charges, and now police want to talk with the star again. His attorney denies the allegations. Well, Democrats are already gearing up for a legal battle with the Trump administration, claiming that there is no national emergency at our southern border, despite former presidents from both sides of the aisle acknowledging the serious issue of illegal immigration.
All Americans, not only in the states most heavily affected, but in every place in this country, are rightly disturbed by the large numbers of illegal aliens entering our country.
We must have stronger immigration enforcement and border protection.
I believe as strongly as ever that we should take on illegal immigration.
All right, you heard it right there. So why are Democrats trying to stop the president from acting on an issue that they have failed to address for decades? Here to debate is Republican strategist Kimberly Klacik and liberal political analyst Rashad Richey. Thank you both for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
Good morning, Heather.
Thank you. So you just heard what several former presidents from both sides of the aisle had to say in reference to protecting our borders and illegal immigration. Doesn't stop there. Now we have Democrats, listen, just from the Sunday shows yesterday, speaking out against what President Trump wants to do, which isn't all that different. Listen.
You have enough votes in the Senate to put a joint resolution of termination on the president's desk?
I think we do. Now, whether we have enough for an override and veto, that's a different story.
He's pretty much daring the court to strike this down.
We will have a vote on this likely in the next 2 or 3 weeks. See if those Republicans show the backbone that they generally haven't shown standing up to this president in the past.
So, Rashad, I will begin with you. I mean, what's the difference? You just heard at the very end of the soundbite to begin with President Obama saying protect our borders. So what's different with President Trump?
Because we live in a democracy. That's the difference. Understand that presidents have said in the past that this is a serious issue. The conflict here is if the serious issue rises to the level of a national emergency or a national crisis. Please understand that President Trump is well within his legal rights. There is no constitutional mandate here, but there is a legal mandate codified by Congress in 1976. That legal statute that gives the president the authority to declare a national emergency also provides a provision within that same statute that says Congress can check the authority of the president to make an emergency proclamation. So, yes, the president is within his legal authority, but Congress is within their legal authority as well to check the power of the declaration.
But Rashad, I guess my question was, and I'll let Kimberly answer it, what is the difference in terms of Congress not supporting this president where they supported past presidents in doing similar types of things?
Yeah, this is just a game of politics, which the Dems love to play. This is how they show their hand. See, if they don't have a group of people to pretend to save, they have nothing going for them. This is not a party that is driven by results. We don't see them actually getting anything done, especially nowadays. So they supported President Obama, but they changed their tune because it's President Trump. They know 2020 is coming. They know if he puts the border up or a barrier, it's another feather in his hat, and they can't compete with that in 2020. That's why they're pushing back so hard. This is all they have left.
And Rashad, I mean, I'll bring up what Lindsey Graham had to say earlier in the show. We had some sound from him, and he pointed out President Bush, Obama, and President Trump now, they all want to support protecting our borders. President Obama, President Bush, they sent troops to the border to support to protect the border there. So what is the difference with what President Trump is trying to do? And President Trump, in terms of the wall, he's putting up steel slats, not even a concrete barrier, as had been previously discussed, and the amount of money significantly different.
There's a level of hypocrisy on both sides of this political debate. Number one, the wall cannot be immoral when Democrats have voted for the wall and also funded the wall and also extended the wall under Democratic presidents. So that entire debate is political.
To the tune of $44 billion.
Well, what's happening right now is there's a methodology question. How do you actually go about developing a comprehensive border security plan? So I get that debate. I think they disagree with him fundamentally on the methodology of how he's going about it.
Okay, and then Kimberly, you get the final word.
Yeah, so I agree. We all have the same goal at the end of the day, and that is hopefully to protect our borders. I hope they care about our national security. But this is his method. He is the president. Why not let him go with it? If President Obama and President Bush didn't get it done, let President Trump go with it.
All right, we will see what happens. Lots of protests, though, planned across the country today, as we said earlier. Kimberly, Rashad, thank you for your insight. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, the time now is about 20 minutes until the top of the hour, and the faces of fallen Border Patrol agents covered by images of migrant children.
These Border Patrol agents are murderers. That's what they are.
And look at what they did here. Protesters covering photos honoring fallen agents with photos of migrant children. The museum's director in El Paso, Texas, calls it an act of vandalism. The protesters were eventually kicked out by military police. It's not clear if anyone, though, was arrested. Joe Biden telling Europeans that America is an embarrassment.
The America I see values basic human decency, not snatching children from their parents or turning our back on refugees at our border. Americans know that's not right. The American people understand please because it makes us embarrassing.
Well, the former vice president and potential 2020 presidential candidate speaking at before a crowd at a security conference in Munich. He says that he will make his decision on 2020 soon. Please let us know what you think about that. Well, as the health crisis for 9/11 first responders and victims continues, the Victims' Compensation Fund announced that they won't have enough money to pay out current and projected claims. Here to discuss what this means for our heroic first responders and what Congress can do to help is Chairman of the Stephen Siller Tunnel to Towers Foundation, Frank Siller. Thank you so much for joining us. We always appreciate you having you with us. So let us know what's going on here. So the funds are running short. This was announced on Friday?
Yes. Yeah. So many people realize it's running out by 2020, the claim to put your claim in. So after 9/11, everybody remembers the images of firefighters and police officers down there, the search and recovery efforts that were being made. People from all over the United States were coming. It was a great effort made. So many people were living down there. They were told the air was okay and don't worry about it. You can go back to work. You can go to school. And these people are getting sick and they're dying. Almost 350 firefighters and cops have died since 9/11 with 9/11 related illnesses. These heroes and these other families that live down around there have to be taken care of. It's not fair. We have to go to Congress. We have to say you have to take care of these families that are left behind, that are still paying the sacrifice of 9/11.
Absolutely. And what can happen now? Because if the funds are going to run out by 2020, that's coming up very soon, what does Congress need to do in order to enact something to change this so quickly?
They have to go back, and Peter King and our congressmen and people, congresswomen down in Washington have to step up to the plate and take care of those who are still suffering from 9/11 related illnesses. It takes a long time for some of these illnesses to manifest. These people are dying. You got to take care of their families afterwards. Always our first responders, for sure, but there's a lot of other people that are suffering.
And we do have a statement that came out from the person who is in charge of this fund, and the person said basically what they're doing right now is cutting the amount of money that people are receiving in order to make it last longer.
Yeah, 50 to 70% cut back. Let's be fair about this. There's those who died sooner those families should be taken care of. Ones that died later should be taken care of also. Yeah. I think as Americans, let's not forget what happened on 9/11 and the sacrifice that was made that day and has been made ever since, not just by our military, but those who were down there for the search and recovery that were told that it was okay to be there.
Yeah. And something that your family certainly hasn't forgotten with your Tunnel to Towers Foundation and all the work that you do. Stephen Siller, your brother, was off that day, was not working that day, and he took it upon himself to run through the tunnels to try to get to the scene and help, and of course lost his life.
That's why we have the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Yes. My brother ran through the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel to the towers, gave up his life along with 343 firefighters and so many